And talking of future, Mal Fletcher joins me now, who's a futurist. Very good to see you, Mal. How are you?
I'm well, Petrie. How are you?
Good. I'm extremely well. All the better for seeing you. I can promise you that. Mal, this is really something that is so vital to the future of democracy, to the future even of civilization, and that is believing what we're told. This sort of post-truth era that we seem to be living in at the moment, with AI-generated news, with images that are extremely, confusing, that we completely. I saw one today telling me that there'd been some explosions in New York. Now, as a journalist, I'm able to go and speak to people and track things down and find out that it was absolutely not true. But it looked extremely convincing. The report was very convincing. This AI-generated news and this fake news that's out at the moment is extremely worrying, isn't it?
Yes, it is. There's all sorts of things we could talk about here, but just by way of background, you think about the speed of this change where it comes to news and access to news. In the last 20 years, or under 20 years, we've already seen two major revolutions. The one was the social media revolution. People said that would democratise news with citizen journalists. But I think more than democratisation of news, it gave us the proliferation of opinion, often without any substantiating research at all. The second revolution came about 5-6 years ago, when a lot of individuals started taking up platforms like YouTube to form small, in inverted commas, news organisations. And many of these individuals have no history in journalism. And right now, as you suggest, we're seeing the very early stages of a third news revolution built on the presence and power of AI. So in the next 5 to 10 years, we can expect to see things like hyper-personalised news, fully automated newscasts that use sophisticated AI in real time, remote drones beaming videos to domestic news bots, and even, I think, e-giving platforms that allow people to support victims as they watch them live. But there are some concerns, and one of the big ones is misinformation and a lack of critical perspective on the news.
I mean, you've also got people like Donald Trump calling legitimate news organisations scum, saying that they're lying, that they should be arrested. He's coming down very hard on news organisations in the US. I think he will be credited with the term fake news. Anything that doesn't agree with him is fake news. They are scumbags, they are liars, they are losers. Even stuff coming out of his own administration, that's political sabotage. Nothing is, unless it says how brilliant Trump is, it's wrong. And people are already believing that, and that really scares me. In as much as democracy, we saw it in Nazi Germany, exactly the same thing. This destruction of voices that may be the voice of calm in a storm.
Yeah, exactly right. And what he's doing is calling into question the whole idea of the citizenry trusting the media.
Yeah.
And he knows, we know, that trust is the currency on which influence is based. And it's important here that the news organisations maintain a physical presence in the midst of all the AI that's going on, because trust requires accountability and transparency, and that means a human face. Banks have discovered that, they've closed branches, they've shut down an important channel through which consumers can make complaints or ask questions. The same thing will happen with news journalism if we get to the stage where AI is allowed to replace completely faces and voices of real human beings. Because you and I know there are times when human beings want to know that the people reporting the news have the same feelings about news as the people receiving it. So I think for all of Trump's machinations, we just have to get on with promoting journalism that people can trust.
But you've got organisations like Fox, which is called Fox News, None of the presenters there are journalists. They cosplay at being journalists, but they are called a news organisation. It's hardly surprising, therefore, that people do get confused. They switch on the television, it says Fox News, you believe that there is some kind of organisation that would stop them from lying about it. It should be called Fox Entertainment, and it isn't, and they cosplay at being journalists. None of them have, as far as I know, have studied journalism. You know, it is really scary, but you can't blame the consumer in a way for being confused about what they're seeing.
No, that's true. And I think that problem's going to get a little bit worse if we're not careful because of the hyper-personalisation that will come with AI.
Opinion, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's personalised news, though, pitched at people according to the data and what the data says about those people's tastes. So we see that with social media, but I think in the next iteration, we're going to see supposedly mainstream media organisations, trusted media organisations, doing much the same thing. And that tends to promote emotion. So there's a lot of heat, but not a lot of light on the subject, which is what journalism brings to the table.
I absolutely agree with you. There is this, headline grabbing, oh, it's all terrible, or, I'm angry about this, because people think that's what journalism, but that isn't journalism. It's never been the way I was trained, the way I have worked, the rules. And this is another thing that you see with these so-called citizen journalists. They don't appreciate that there have to be rules. There have to be rules on impartiality. I'm very clear when I'm talking about something that is my opinion, and when I'm talking about something that is as a fact. But people are now mushing those together. And again, if you've got somebody who's getting hyper-personalised news, they're just going to be in the echo chamber of whatever anger or frustration they have with a particular topic.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's how conspiracy theories have taken such root post-COVID. But the other thing that comes off of that, Petrie, is that deeply affects our social cohesion, our sense of community. Personalised news feeds could lead to a splintered public square, so there are no commonly accepted facts to unite us as a community, and a large part of social cohesion is shared narratives. So a variety of outlooks can help people make informed choices. But if you've got too many choices, people get splintered. You see one part of the community pitted against another. And it's easy to see, isn't it, how very convincing propaganda could be used to inflame domestic protests or international conflicts even, and that's a very bad place to be.
But I've also discovered, in the many years that I've been a journalist and a broadcaster, attitudes have changed almost without recognition to facts. I can sit here, I love doing a phone-in, I get to talk to people all around the country about all sorts of different topics, and I absolutely love it. But there are times where you say, no, but that simply isn't true. That what you're saying is not a fact. I go, well, yeah, but I heard it. And I go, I don't, it doesn't matter to me where, it just isn't true. But people will choose their experts, again in an echo chamber, and then stick to it. There's no discourse, there's no ability to have a grown-up conversation and go, do you want to know why it's not true, or do you want to know where I get my truth from and how I've researched it, or whatever. There seems to be a reluctance now to we're sort of post-expert, if you like. Experts don't exist anymore because everybody's an expert.
Yes, or everybody likes to think they're an expert, don't they? On everything. That's the danger.
That's the danger, yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes, experts make it easy for that to happen because they try to be experts on everything, and none of us can be. No. One of the things I've been studying along that line is the impact of what I would call hybrid technology and government. So a sort of a blending of technology and government, so that government can't do its proper job in ensuring that there are fact-based news services out there. Look at Elon Musk's recent involvement in setting up that that efficiency department in the US. It led to all sorts of charges of conflicts of interest, but presumably he's not going to be the last AI owner or tech owner to cozy up to government figures exchanging money for influence, especially where AI regulation is concerned. So while Keir Starmer's talking about pushing investment above regulation with technology, you know, we could end up with a time when politicians spend all their time schmoozing potential AI innovators, and big tech leaders might be left to draw up their own regulations, which is going to exacerbate all the things you've been talking about. Tech companies have proven time and again, especially with social media, that they're either unwilling or unable to regulate themselves, and they won't do it in a way that places the common good above corporate profit. So a lot of the answer to the problem you're describing starts at the very root with government getting serious about regulating not just news, but in this case, regulating the use of AI to promote news.
But I mean, that reminds me when you were talking there of Peter Thiel, who's very close with Donald Trump and Palantir. We've got issues with Palantir. Even in this country, they're trying to inveigle their way into our police systems to start profiling potential criminals, which I find extremely troubling. But there's a big database, isn't there? In America, they're trying to set up now with everybody's details on it, and they're using AI to do that. And we know that there's sort of these politics involved now with these technocrats. Is like you said, you just have to look at Musk, and now you can look at Peter Thiel. But the situation is one where who's benefiting from this? Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill that he wants to push through says that there will be no oversight on AI development for a minimum of 10 years. So these people can do what they like for 10 years.
Yeah, that's ridiculous in a so-called civilized democracy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that part of the issue that comes out of that then is who do we trust, and how do we decide what is misinformation? I was looking back today in the media history of 1938 when Orson Welles broadcast his infamous War of the Worlds radio program.
Yeah.
And many of the listeners will remember hearing about this, where entire US cities were thrown into manic confusion.
They thought it was the real thing, yeah.
They thought it was an alien invasion. People trusted radio, which was still a relatively new tech at the time, because it had become such a part of their lives. And today, I think, we're starting to condition ourselves to trust things like AI and other techs in the same way. So in time, if we keep down that road, we'll see something like the same levels of confusion, mainly in areas involving news. People will be bombarded with so much data on all sides so quickly, they won't have time to process it, and they won't have the skills to think critically about it. So we need to be very, very careful to avoid what is just purely emotionally charged content and look for information over what I would call titillation.
But we've also got a situation, just briefly, Mal, where we have got politicians who will actually look us in the face and lie. And although they used to sort of fib and do that, but again, I'm going to go back to America, because this is the biggest example at the moment of what's happening with technocrats being so involved in government, and so openly involved in government. You know, you've got Donald Trump who'll say, I had the biggest crowd you've ever seen, 250,000 people came to my birthday parade, and yet you're looking at live footage of the parade, and clearly only about 10,000 people went there. But there's no editing, if you like, of those lies. If you just say it, then it becomes the truth.
Yeah, and I think the general public kind of gets that. The problem is that we have, especially in the United States, we see more of it, thankfully, than we do in this country. But you see a lot of this, that the media will keep on about something to the point where, even though they may not agree with what Trump is saying, they're giving it credence by continually saying it, repeating it, bashing it. Bashing it simply makes the MAGA supporters get more ardent in their belief in Trump, usually. It just stokes their loyalty fires, if you like. But what we need is some cool heads. I mean, I'm going back just as a child listening to newscasters who would talk about the assassination of JFK. I was only very young, but I remember how seriously that was presented.
Absolutely.
And there were no countervailing, opinions about it. It was a bad thing. It had been done. America needed to respond. And I think some of that we've lost, as you say, because we've got this plethora of options now, not all of them bona fide in terms of journalism, and we don't want to lose that.
No, if we haven't got a free press, then we've got nothing. We don't have anything. Good to talk to you, Mal. I could chat to you forever. Mal Fletcher, Futurist, thank you very much indeed. Quick break.